tears anyway. But we will have a look at the Premier League title race, which will resume in a couple of weeks' time. It's FA Cup weekend next weekend. But the former Arsenal manager, George Graham, interviewed by Jeff Powell in the Mail on Sunday. The headline: "For all my teams, defending was a manly art, not professional wrestling on steroids." And as part of the piece, John Crossy says, "None of us want to watch that. Our game is being dragged down a steep decline. Do the fans want to watch this? Don't think so." Discuss.
Well, I've got to be careful here because I know George Graham basically is a big fan of the show and will certainly be watching.
Good.
And
Good morning, George.
Absolutely, you're welcome, George. And having been on the end of a few George Graham Rollicking over the years, I better watch what I say. No, I actually think it's a smashing interview. I really enjoyed reading it. And, you know, sometimes I think sort of kind of former players and former managers, when they go into kind of what's happening today, don't have always a great hand on it. I'd rather them talking about what happened in the back. But this cut's actually a sort of a lovely mix between the two. It did amuse me somewhat because I actually think in 89 it was the greatest story, wasn't it, on the final day of the season. 91, they were brilliant to watch, actually, and I think undersold. But then by 93, he'd actually built an exciting team, far too exciting for George, so he kind of deconstructed it and made them actually boring and successful again and winning cups. So actually, you know, when he's talking about are they great to watch, this Arsenal team, it did make me slightly sort of kind of chuckle a little bit because really 1-0 to the Arsenal, and in those times, it wasn't exactly kind of edge of your seat football sort of in certain periods. It was in others, in fairness to him. But it's a really interesting topic, isn't it? I actually did something with a few Arsenal sort of kind of fans the other day, and talking about kind of do they really care about how they are perceived and how they are playing the game? And I feel
they do care, don't they? Well, whether they should or not is a different question.
Well, this is it, you see. So I thought Jamie Carragher actually did a really interesting column in the Telegraph a couple of Fridays ago, where he was making the point, it might have been before the Carabao Cup final, he said basically, in years gone by it's anyone but City, and now it feels like we've entered the era anyone but Arsenal. And he was actually, it wasn't necessarily being critical, he was just saying, how did we reach this point? And I do agree with that. And I think Arsenal fans will rail back and say, oh, well, we don't. Because I tell you why I think they should care. It's about respect. And basically, I thought last season Liverpool weren't given necessarily always the respect they deserve. If you are the best, if you win the champions, if you are crowned champions of the Premier League, you are the best team over the course of a season. You are clearly the best team. You've earned it. I don't care what the standard is. Liverpool, I thought, were brilliant. Head and shoulders last season above everyone else. This season, it has been a quirky Premier League. It has been about set pieces. But I do think if Arsenal are champions, they will have earned it. And I tell you what, it's ridiculous a bit to be casting them completely about set pieces. Do they use set pieces? Yes, they do. But I tell you what, they do set pieces a lot better than anyone else. And everyone else is doing it, but they're just better at it. Are they entertaining? Well, at times it's not. But I tell you what, they've played really good football at times as well. I'm thinking particularly the Champions League games, Bayern Munich, Inter Milan, Atletico, really good performance levels. There's been other Premier League games as well. So I think they're a little bit cast. Let's be clear here. Last couple of months, it's not been a great watch, and it feels like they've flicked a switch and said, "We don't care how we get over the line, but we need to get over the line." And basically, anything will do because that kind of encapsulates the nerves around it. Could potentially be their first title in 22 years, and I think that it's all about the set pieces, and it hasn't been a great watch. But if they do it, I'm not completely convinced it matters that much.
Which is interesting because George talks in that piece, as John said there, about the old 1-0 to the Arsenal line. And if you get over the line, well, it becomes a term of endearment, doesn't it, the 1-0 to the Arsenal? Do you think that lack of respect that John talks about there towards potentially Arsenal and referencing Liverpool last year is because we became spoilt for 4 or 5 years by two teams, particularly City, but also Liverpool 19-20, in teams that were great to watch and also brilliant and churned out 90-plus point seasons 4 or 5 years in a row?
I do. I think that Liverpool, City, Pep, Klopp era stands with the Fergie Wenger era of great Premier League rivalries, and when we all miss it. That was football of highest entertainment level, highest level, and all that kind of stuff. And as John touches on, the standards across the league, the way the football's been played this season in the Premier League, it has dropped from an aesthetic point of view. It's dropped from a just a levels point of view, we're seeing that in the Champions League with the struggles of some of the English clubs once they get to the knockout rounds. I don't think any of the top clubs have been anything like their vintage selves, and Arsenal are the best of a I'm not going to say bad bunch, but a bunch that are pragmatic and a lot more physical orientated, and there's a lack of fantasy in the Premier League at the moment. I agree that if I was an Arsenal fan, if I was Mikel Arteta, I wouldn't care. I'd want to get across the line. It's so important for the club. As a neutral, yeah, I wish there was more to watch sometimes. I was disappointed with the Carabao Cup final and how a team with that amount of talent couldn't try and assert themselves more. I felt I was at the Max Dowman game, and I felt, well, that's amazing, that's fantastic. That's a moment that we'll remember. Arsenal kind of needed that kind of moment on the pitch. But to pretend that they're alone in this is disingenuous. You know, everyone's been poor, I'd say, in the top teams. You say Man United are resurgent, so that's been exciting. They weren't good to watch under Ruben Amorim. Everyone else has been poor. Arsenal, I don't think, actually do have the best set-piece record in the Premier League. I think that's Spurs, possibly. Man City have got a great set-piece record. So yeah, they're just doing it better than everyone else. Their challenge, if they win, will be to grow as a spectacle. At the moment, it's about getting across the line.
The great thing about you making that point about Spurs is our Spurs producer who supports them is still grumbling in my ear about something to do with Spurs whilst we're having this. He's not happy about anything and hasn't been for about 3 years, so he continues to moan. Jules, Johnny touched on it there, that it's more, you can churn your way to a league, and I think you become a bit misty-eyed, don't you, about teams that win the league. Oh my God, they won 3-0 every week. Well, they didn't. None of them did. You know, even City and Liverpool had a lot of 1-0ers and the brilliance of people like Van Dijk and company at the back. But in a cup final, that was the problem, wasn't it? That there just seemed no spark, particularly in that second half, and that City blew them away a little bit.
Yeah, I think the plan, especially in the second half, tactically what he did, and even that screen of 4 that Arsenal really never found a way of beating, and it was not really a high press or an intense press. It was just very smart from Guardiola, even the use of Cherki and Bernardo Silva and Semenyo on that right-hand side. So there was a lot of really interesting things from Guardiola, which shows that he's still a world-class manager like Arteta. It's just that Arteta on that day could not find an answer to what Guardiola put in. I think, knowing Arteta like we do, who is so relentless in his work rate of next time I'll be better, I will find a solution, especially that the Etihad game is in 3 weeks' time now. Well, actually Sunday, in 3 weeks' time. He will be more prepared for anything that Guardiola probably will throw at him. And it's a great learning curve. And I think if you from an Arsenal point of view, they were still in 4 competitions. They were never going to win all 4 of them anyway. They might not even win the 3 left that they are in it. But the one to lose was probably that one anyway. But I think it's part of the learning.
You don't think there's any potential psychological impact on losing the first one? And it feels more like City are in their windshield a little bit.
Personally, I don't think so. And City go to Chelsea the weekend after the FA Cup. Arsenal host Bournemouth. A lot of things can change on that day, even before the Etihad game. But I think that psychologically, for Arsenal and Arteta, this was not a wake-up call is a bit too strong, or a warning too strong as well. But they will say, okay, we still have a lot to learn to be able at times to compete with teams like City, like Guardiola, and it'll be the same in the Champions League, not so much maybe Sporting, but from Barcelona in the semi-final, potentially to a final, it'd be the same. And I think psychologically, it would have been a boost in a way to realise that we thought we were right there, maybe the best in the country, and actually there's still games where we could be undone.
I think it's a hammer blow, I must say. I completely disagree. I think that basically 4 was never going to happen.
But that was never going to happen before.
No, but please don't get me wrong. But I think then that basically, I even saw Paul Merson last week talk about how kind of Arsenal might only end up with a title. Well, honestly, if they end up with a title, you bite your hand off.
First world problems.
First time in 22 years. But having said that, I just thought Guardiola, tactically, he just basically picked away at it, put Arteta in his back pocket and said, here we go. And basically, let's not beat around the bush here, basically. I think Man City, anywhere near their best, it basically, in this Premier League, would be 20 points clear. Arsenal's recruitment in the summer, I know it's an old chestnut of mine, but basically, if that had been, it was patchy at best. If it had been anywhere near decent, I think, and completely everyone was ticked off and been really, really good, they'd be 20 points clear because of the state of the Premier League. So I do think, it's not faultless, Arsenal's season, but if they win the title, they'll have been the best team across the season. But the one thing is that Man City have now struck a blow. Arsenal will have this amazing opportunity against Bournemouth to go 12 clear, having played 2 games more, and then City must go to Chelsea. But then if they don't beat Bournemouth, well, then all of a sudden it's the nerves back in, it's Man City in the rearview mirror, it's memories of Wembley, it's knowing that City have, got the potential beating of them, and then suddenly you're nervous again for them, simply because you think, not so sure about that. City absolutely, basically completely outplayed them, outfoxed them in that second half. It was a Pep Guardiola coaching masterclass, and where he basically, I'm afraid to say, he taught the
apprentice a lesson.
I think that would make Arsenal stronger, and that's why I disagree with Crossy on this.
The interesting thing about City, Andy Dunn's piece is watch out Arsenal. Guardiola looks rejuvenated, so do his team. The intensity is back. The part of Andy's piece there is what we read into the body language, and was that potentially one last Wembley final as City manager for Pep? He could obviously still get there in the FA Cup as well, but if, hypothetically, this was his last season, there's no say, well, he's got one. He wouldn't have wanted to go the final 2 seasons without winning a trophy. So is he almost now playing pressure off football and just thinking, well, if we can hunt Arsenal down, it's a massive bonus?
I think the pressure is off them, for sure. You think of his great rival friend Klopp winning the Carabao Cup in exactly those circumstances in the sort of farewell tour. The idea that City, though, are going to click into that relentless reeling off the wins mode, I still have a problem with. They've been so patchy this season. Pep aside, Pep reaffirmed how good he is, how much he wants it. Kicking the stuff at the drinks trolley, whatever it was.
Trolley, lovely.
Trolley? Was it drinks bucket? I don't know. Help me. But it's whether the team can put together that kind of City-style run. I'm still not sure. Haaland still doesn't look Haaland. Foden's not playing. There's such talent there, but it still, for me, hasn't quite come together as a consistent team. So if they did reel off the wins, I'd be interested to see how Arsenal react psychologically. But I don't think Arsenal will have to win all their games to get across the line.
And that is the point, Jules, I think, isn't it? That I think it's a great point from Johnny, that this isn't a great City team. It's a really good City team, but ultimately, and this is not me helping Pep out with some mind games, if they don't win it from here, Arsenal, they will never forgive themselves, because it is set for them that even if they go to the Etihad and don't win, it's still in their hands. Yeah, they're in a very strong position. I think they would have signed at the start of the season to be there right now, 3 weeks before that big game at the Etihad. I think this is Guardiola's last season. I think he won't be there next season. I think he's probably made his mind up already too. And I think in a way, that doesn't take anything away from obviously the Carabao Cup win and what City are doing. But this is a transition season to prepare already the post-Guardiola era. Whether that Pep Blinders is still in it next season, whoever comes next, whether that's, I don't know, Xabi Alonso, let's say they try, or Vincent Kompany, I don't know, whoever they want, it won't be easy to come after Pep. And I think Pep is preparing already this squad, a young squad in some positions, to whoever comes next. That will be playing a very different style of football, because nobody can play Guardiola style of football anyway, apart from Guardiola himself. And I think you see in the evolution of this team tactically a lot of that, and that's why they've been patchy, because it's not really a Guardiola team, it's the team for who comes after Guardiola next season. And I think that will make the end of their season far from perfect. I don't think they will win every game between now and the end of the season. City, neither will Arsenal, but I think Arsenal are still in a very strong position.